it's Leanne. So as all of you already know, I was in Rome at the start of this month. So I don't usually buy a lot of things when I go on holiday. Most of the time my money is spent on entry fees to cool things and food. And believe me when I say there was a lot of food. Actually quite surprised that I didn't turn into pasta. Turning into pasta not actually that bad a thought. However, two spectacular things happened. The first spectacular thing is that every single place that we visited, I was able to procure for myself a beautiful bookmark, which I will show you in a moment. And the second wonderful thing was that we got to visit the Keats-Shelley House. The Keats-Shelley House flanks the Spanish Steps on the Piazza di Spagna, and it's the house wherein John Keats spent the last 4 months of his life being nursed through consumption. So first I'm going to show you the bookmarks and then we're going to talk about the Keats-Shelley House. So one of the places that we discovered entirely by accident was the Leonardo da Vinci Museum. The museum had replicas of almost all of his major structures, including tanks and diving outfits and machinery and everything. And wings. There were wings. So I picked up this really cool magnetic bookmark there, and I did know what it said on the back at the time, but I don't now. So if you're Italian you can translate it in the comments, and if not I'll try and find it on Google and insert it here somewhere. Next, of course, we went to the Colosseum. It was the one thing that we were absolutely determined that we were going to do. It was spectacular. But one of the things that we found unfortunate is that because the preservation of the Colosseum itself is so important, it's really impossible to modify anything to show you how it would have looked. It's even more fun when you can buy a bookmark which shows you. The next place we went to was a museum, and I don't entirely remember what the name of the museum is, so I'll Google it and try and leave it below. But essentially, when they changed the laws in Rome and said that anything that was discovered below ground became the property of the council, essentially. And they started to uncover all of these magnificent frescoes and complete painted rooms and tiling. They moved all to this museum, including lots of money and jewellery and things like that, which I'm less interested in, but it's still cool. And they relaid it out so that all of the rooms are as intact as they can be. And so I purchased this bookmark, which is a cloth replica of one of the panels on the wall. How pretty! And finally, when we're talking about visiting other places, we went to the Vatican. Or more specifically, we went to the Vatican museums because we were less interested in standing in the line, which literally goes on for 2 hours in 36-degree heat. And from the Vatican Museum, I picked up these two bookmarks. There's of course this one, from this very famous painting on the wall of the Sistine Chapel. And then this beautiful angel from Milozzo di Flori, something like that. So these make me very happy. And now on to the Keats-Shelley House. I was completely unprepared. I haven't talked about it very much on this channel, but when I was doing my literature degree and you know, you go through all of the standard stages of literature and you get to romantic poetry, and I was terrified. I had never analysed poetry in my life. I had never really understood poetry. I didn't want to read poetry, especially when it was about the countryside, which I love but don't necessarily want to read reams and reams of writing about. And then I discovered the new romantic poet, Byron, Keats and Shelley. And I, like hundreds of thousands of literature students before me, fell in love with John Keats. So if you didn't know anything about Keats, his story is quite depressing. All of the new romantic poets died fairly young, but Keats died in really horrific circumstances. He had given up the medical profession to become a writer, to become a poet. And of course, at the time that he was writing in the early 1800s, being published was more difficult than it is now. Before Keats died, his work was very, very heavily criticised. People did not think he had what it took to become a very celebrated poet. They didn't think that he had the kind of insight or depth to his poetry that his peers had. And despite carrying on a really fond correspondence with Percy Bysshe Shelley, he was never part of that literary set. So in November 1820, Keats left London for sunnier climes. With his medical background, He had already nursed his younger and very beloved brother through tuberculosis. And at the time, they didn't realise that this was contagious. So Keats knew very early on from his own medical training that his time was going to be very brief. So along with the young painter Joseph Severn, Keats took himself away to Italy, and they managed to secure this apartment right on the Spanish Step. And despite the fact that Keats rallied very early after his arrival there, he went downhill incredibly quickly. In December 1820, Joseph Severn wrote the following letter to Charles Browne. "Oh, he will mourn over every circumstance to me whilst I cool his burning forehead, until I tremble through every vein in concealing my fears from his staring glassy eyes. How he can be Keats again from all this, I have little hope." So pretty much on his deathbed, Keats predicted that when he died, he was going to become one of the extremely celebrated romantic poets of his day. And that's exactly what happened. When Keats died, the police wanted to burn everything in the house because it was thought that burning the furnishings and the wallpaper, etc., would stop the disease from spreading. And it took a lot of people, including the President of America, to appeal against this decision and to respect his last space. And so now the museum is split into a library, which used to be his landlady's roped off sitting room, the little kitchen, and their sort of sitting room as well. Joseph Severn's bedroom, which is comprised mostly of art which Severn created surrounding Keats in the last 4 months and the preceding years, and Keats's bedroom, which is completely preserved. So the Keats-Shelley House turned out to be the most expensive outing for me of the entire trip. The Keats-Shelley House produced this guide, which is pretty awesome. This is an actual picture of the house where it sits on the Spanish Step. The bookshop has quite a lot of out-of-print books which you can actually inquire about on their website, which I'll link below. One of these pamphlets was Keats in Rome, and in essence it is a 30-odd page pamphlet which talks about everything that Keats did when he got to Rome and collects sort of all of the known anecdotes about his time there with the known fact, and sort of takes information from Severn's letters and letters that Keats wrote himself to piece together his final days. And of course I could not leave the bookshop without buying an actual book. So I picked up this absolutely stunning favourite edition of selected Keats poetry. So of course I couldn't leave a bookshop without actual bookmarks. So I picked up this absolutely stunning one which features an extract from Ode to a Grecian Urn by John Keats. And this is actually the sketch which Keats did of the Grecian urn in the poem. And this gorgeous slimline bookmark which features one of the most famous portraits of Keats and one of his most famous lines. I also picked up this rather stunning mug which features Keats's original manuscript, including all of his scratched out corrections for Ode to a Nightingale. And I picked up these literary button badges, which are incredibly cute. I woke one morning and found myself famous, bright star, hail to thee blithe spirit, and a thing of beauty is a joy forever. And last but not least, no, this is not a pen box, nor is it a wand box, more's the pity, because Keat is a wizard sounds awesome. It's actually a stunningly beautiful fan, featuring some of Keats's manuscripts. So I hoped you enjoyed my little obscure Roman haul, and that for any other romantic buffs out there, this has been a great glimpse into the Keats-Shelley House. I have to say it's an incredibly emotional place. The atmosphere is... I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. I will be back soon with some reviews. Bye!